Venus has more volcanoes than any other planet in the solar system, more than 1,600. And a day on Venus, measured by how long it takes to rotate once on its axis, takes longer than the time it takes to complete a full orbit of the Sun. Wow! And that's just Monday. An extreme greenhouse effect warms the planet's surface up to 870 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt lead. Winds there reach the speed of 450 miles per hour in the middle cloud layer, faster than the speediest tornadoes on our planet. The pressure on Venus's surface is 90 times higher than that at sea level on Earth. What a great place for a vacation, huh? And recently, this incredible place has become even more intriguing. In the toxic Venusian atmosphere, there's something that might mean the existence of life. Unfortunately, scientists haven't had a chance to collect any microbe specimens or snap any pictures of life there. But they've discovered a chemical called phosphine, and it's a big deal.
If it's not some previously unknown chemistry that produces the gas, then there must be a kind of microbial life involved in the process. Phosphine is made up of 3 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of phosphorus. This gas is toxic to any normal life form that needs oxygen, including us humans. On our planet, phosphine can be found in places with no or little oxygen, for example, marshes and swamps. The gas is created by complex mixtures of bacteria living there. It can also be produced industrially.
The weirdest thing is that phosphine isn't supposed to be in Venus's atmosphere at all. This gas needs precise pressure and temperature and tons of hydrogen to form. It wouldn't be all that surprising to find it on Saturn or Jupiter, the famous gas giants, but on Venus? Totally unexpected. There's no way phosphine can be produced naturally on this planet. Tiny amounts of it can be created during volcanic eruptions, lightning storms, minerals blown up to the surface, or meteorites entering Venus's atmosphere. But it's not nearly enough to explain what the astronomers have observed. It would only make 1/10,000th of the phosphine the telescope saw.
But let's start from the very beginning. In 2017, a group of scientists led by Jane Greaves from Cardiff University started to use the James Clerk Maxwell Radio Telescope in Hawaii. That's a mouthful. The main idea was to search for phosphine gas. It would be a sign of life on Venus. When the data came back and the researchers analyzed it, they were shocked. The phosphine signal was powerful. The team checked the results several times. They wanted to make sure no other substance mimicked the presence of phosphine gas.
So now, does it mean there's life on Venus? Well, not necessarily. If this gas is created by some mysterious organisms, it's a big question how they survive on Venus. On our planet, some microbes can thrive in the environments with the acidity of 5%, but no more. On Venus, though, clouds are almost entirely made of acid. And even though they have a rather pleasant temperature of 86 degrees Fahrenheit, these clouds contain more than 90% of sulfuric acid. DNA, amino acids, proteins, life components on Earth would be dissolved there in the blink of an eye. The surface of the planet is too hot for any kind of complex molecules to make up life. The Venusian atmosphere is almost 50 times as dry as the driest place on our home planet. There's a theory that microbes might hide in scarce water droplets floating in the atmosphere, but it hasn't been proved yet.
Right now, the research team's waiting for more telescope time. They're going to look for other gases associated with life. But even if they find more evidence, life forms on Venus will be made up of building blocks absolutely different than those on Earth. Or they might be protected by a sulfuric acid-resistant shell. It can be made of such substances as sulfur, wax, graphite, or something else we can't imagine.
Of course, some experts question the idea of life on Venus. They think the gas might be produced during some geologic or atmospheric processes happening on the planet. But the supporters of both theories agree on one thing: the discovery is extraordinary. Interestingly, astronomers have always tried to find signs of life on giant planets' icy moons, or even closer, on Mars. But they've never seriously considered Venus. If additional telescope observations and future space missions confirm that phosphine is produced by living organisms, we can be in for a bunch of exciting surprises. Then people would know of a planet with an alien biosphere, well, alien to us, and this planet would be just next door to Earth. Now, speaking of visiting Venus, though, would it be possible for people to land on this planet? After all, robots are already tooling around the red planet surface. On the pro side, Venus is closer to Earth than Mars, but it also has much harsher conditions. The planet is hotter than Mercury, even though Venus is almost double the distance from the Sun. The temperatures are higher than the melting point of many metals, and some of them, like lead or bismuth, can fall as snow on the highest mountain peaks. If you set foot on the planet, you'll find nothing but barren rock. Giant basaltic plains are littered with volcanoes and mountains. In some places, the surface melts because of the heat underneath. After it releases some of it, the rock solidifies again. If people ever go to this planet, they will most likely build floating cities in the clouds of Venus's atmosphere. At about 31 miles above the surface, the conditions, like the pressure and gravity, are similar to those on Earth. The temperature is rather manageable too, at around 167 degrees Fahrenheit. Think Death Valley, California on a really hot day. The atmospheric pressure is half of what we have at sea level on our planet. If you went outside, you'd be fine without a pressure suit. The pressure you'd feel would be the same as at the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. Plus, this colony would be protected from the sun's radiation better than one on Mars. If the atmosphere was the mission's final destination, landing a spacecraft, or rather making it hover in the air, would look very different. The idea is to use an airship in the upper atmosphere for long periods of time. The airship, wrapped in an aeroshell, would enter the planet's atmosphere at a speed of 24,000 feet per second. In the next 7 minutes, its speed would drop to around 1,500 feet per second. After that, a huge parachute would open. It would slow the spacecraft down even more, and then things would get a bit hectic. The aeroshell, not needed anymore, would drop away. The airship would then inflate itself, all the while hurtling through the atmosphere toward the planet's surface. Its speed would be at least 330 feet per second. It would get larger and larger, and its drag and lift would increase. Soon, the parachute wouldn't be needed anymore. The crew would get rid of it, and the airship would fill with air completely. If everything went as planned, it would stop 30 miles above Venus's surface. After that, the airship would travel around the planet. It would be moved by the wind, which can reach a speed of 220 miles per hour at the top of the cloud layer. If you decided to move closer to the surface, though, you'd have to be extremely careful. The wind in the middle layer can get twice faster. The airship could be filled with a breathable mixture of hydrogen and oxygen gases. Such a combination would be less dense than the Venusian atmosphere. It would provide the needed buoyancy, to stay up there. Venus is famous for its super dense clouds. These clouds make the planet shine bright enough to be seen from Earth. Venus reflects more than 75% of the light that comes from the Sun. This reflective cloud layer exists thanks to a haze of sulfuric acid droplets in the atmosphere, and they gather exactly at the height where the airship would float. Luckily, people already have a method to overcome the problem of acidity. A few materials, for example Teflon and some types of plastic, have an amazing acidic resistance. They could protect the outsides of the ship. So, let's say you needed to work on a platform outside. Then you'd be able to do it, wearing only a chemical hazard suit and carrying necessary oxygen supply. Ooh, sounds like fun, huh? Yeah, me neither.
In our solar system, most planets spin counterclockwise, but not Venus. This rebel planet decided to spin clockwise, and scientists are still trying to figure out why. By the way, why do planets rotate in general? What defines the speed of their rotation? Does the sun rotate? Buckle up and let's try to answer these questions. Venus is the second planet from the sun and the hottest planet in our solar system. Did you know that Venus is sometimes called Earth's twin? That's because it's similar in size and composition to our own planet. But that's where the similarities end, because Venus is a pretty crazy place, to say the least. For example, the weather. On Venus, it's always hot and cloudy. And when I say hot, I mean it like it's over 800 degrees Fahrenheit there. And those clouds? They're not made of water like the ones on Earth. Instead, they're made of sulfuric acid. So yeah, you wouldn't want to go outside without a really good sunscreen on Venus. If you look at the photos taken from its surface, you can see these toxic yellow clouds and cracked, desolate landscapes. And the spacecraft that captured this turned off almost immediately after sending these photos. Poor fella. But the surface of Venus isn't just some solid, dark, flat land. In fact, Venus has mountains that are taller than Mount Everest. These mountains aren't made of rock like the ones on Earth, though. Instead, they're made of a kind of volcanic material that's denser. Venus is a pretty creepy place that holds many mysteries. One of them has been puzzling scientists for years, and this is the planet's rotation. Most planets in our solar system rotate counterclockwise, but Venus isn't like the other girls. It rotates clockwise, and that's not all. It also rotates around the sun faster than it rotates around itself. In other words, a year on this planet passes faster than a day. It's almost like Venus made being quirky its life mission. But why is that? Well, scientists have a few theories. The most popular theory says that Venus was actually spinning counterclockwise like the other planets, but then something happened to flip it around. And what could that something be, you ask? A planet-sized object. Yep, astronomers believe that something huge once collided with Venus, causing it to spin in the opposite direction. You can imagine this like a cosmic billiard shot, with this mysterious huge object being the cue ball and Venus being the target ball. But we can't actually say that Venus is spinning the wrong way. There's no such thing as a wrong direction of spin in the universe. This is actually called the retrograde rotation. This is when a planet rotates in the opposite direction to its orbit around the sun. Venus, for example, has a retrograde rotation, which means that the sun rises in the west and sets in the east on that planet. So now, when the horoscope says something like Mercury in retrograde, you'll know what it means. Oh, but Venus isn't the only weird one in our solar system. There are definitely some wacky ways that planets can rotate. For example, most planets in our solar system spin around an imaginary line called an axis. This axis is usually straight up and down in relation to the planet's orbit around the sun. However, some planets like Uranus have a tilted axis, which means it's almost on its side in relation to its orbit. This tilt causes the planet's poles to be nearly in the same place as its orbit. The result? As the planet orbits the sun, different parts of it receive different amounts of sunlight, causing extreme seasonal variations. For example, one pole might experience continuous sunlight, while the other is in complete darkness for a long time. Uranus is the only planet in our solar system that rotates on its side. Scientists think that it could repeat Venus's history. Once upon a time, a large impact knocked Uranus off its original axis of rotation, causing it to tilt at an angle of 98 degrees. We should be grateful for Jupiter. Its crazy gravity pulls all the asteroids and protects us from such collisions. All this is somewhat similar to tidally locked planets. Imagine going on a date with a planet, but instead of being charming and mysterious like you'd hoped, it's just staring at you with the same face all night long. That's basically what it's like to hang out with a tidally locked planet. Tidally locked planets are planets that rotate around their axis at the same rate that they orbit their star. This means that the same side of the planet always faces the star, while the other side is in permanent darkness. Being tidally locked can have some weird effects on the planet's climate and weather. The side facing the star can become extremely hot, while the other side can be incredibly cold. The atmosphere on the planet can also get pretty wild, with strong winds blowing from the hot side to the cold side. And it doesn't have to be planets only. Our moon also works this way. Did you know that we always see only one side of the moon? That's because it's tidally locked to the Earth. We can also take the dwarf planet Pluto as an example. It has a strange rotational relationship with its largest moon, Charon. They're tidally locked, which means that they always face each other with the same side. As a result, Pluto and Charon appear to waltz around a common center of gravity, creating a unique dance in space. But the oddities of our solar system don't end there. There are also planets with super fast rotations. While most planets rotate at a fairly sedate pace, some of them are sonic levels fast. Jupiter, for example, rotates once every 9 hours and 56 minutes, which means that it has a day that's less than 10 hours long. That's fast enough to cause the planet to bulge out at its equator. And also, this rapid rotation creates strong bands of winds that can reach speeds of up to 400 miles per hour. And if all this still seems logical and kinda makes sense, then how about chaotic rotations? Yep, some planets have a rotation that's so irregular and unpredictable that it's known as chaotic rotation. This is often caused by the gravitational influence of nearby moons or other planets. And it's mostly the case with moons and small objects like that. In our solar system, some moons of Pluto, Saturn, and Neptune have chaotic rotation. By the way, the Sun rotates too, just like the planets. However, its rotation is not uniform. The equator rotates faster than the poles. Pretty weird, isn't it? This phenomenon creates a magnetic field that's responsible for phenomena like sunspots and solar flares. But all this raises an interesting topic. Why do planets rotate in the first place? This may sound like a silly question, but can you answer it? The answer might be trickier than you imagine. It all started around 4.5 billion years ago with the formation of our solar system. When it formed, it started as a large cloud of gas and dust. As the cloud began to contract due to its own gravity, it began to spin faster and faster, like a spinning top. This spinning motion caused the cloud to flatten into a disc-like shape. As the cloud continued to contract, the center became denser and hotter, eventually forming the Sun. Meanwhile, the material in the disk began to clump together and form planets. But because the disk was already spinning, this spinning motion was inherited by the planets as they formed. In other words, the planets rotate by inertia. They inherited the spinning motion of the cloud of gas and dust from which they formed. This is known as the conservation of angular momentum. This is the same principle that causes ice skaters to spin faster when they bring their arms in. And that's a wrap on the wacky world of planet rotations. From the lightning-fast spin of Jupiter to the bizarre backwards rotation of Venus, it's clear that our solar system is full of surprises. But thanks to the laws of physics and the gravitational pull of the Sun, these planets continue to spin on, keeping time with the steady beat of the cosmos. Stay tuned.
In 2020, scientists studied Venus's surface. This planet has a similar atmosphere to Earth. That's why it's so interesting to people. During studies, they discovered there's phosphine in the surrounding gases of this planet. This substance has organic compounds, phosphorus, with carbon or hydrogen combination. This was an important discovery because the colorless, poisonous phosphine may have a biological origin. On Venus, the recent volcanic activity can be a reason for the appearance of this gas. But it's also possible that some bacteria really live there. Now let's move from Venus to Earth to the Falkland Islands. Beautiful Gentoo penguins live here. Scientists took samples of the penguins' excretion for studying. In the lab, they analyzed the Gentoo's doo-doo and found phosphine there. This discovery shocked everyone. How did the substance that exists 38 million miles away from us got inside penguins? It's hard to believe, but what if these unusual birds came to us from Venus? Maybe they often raise their heads up to see their faraway home in the starry sky. Penguins are rare birds that can turn saltwater into freshwater inside their body. There are unique glands next to their eyes that work as powerful kidneys. It allows penguins to remove salt from the bloodstream. So maybe this same gland can help them survive on Venus in some way. Penguins can't fly only on our planet. But just imagine Venus's atmosphere is perfect for flights. It's possible that millions of penguins are flying on Venus right now. We just can't see them because of the gases covering this planet. Of course, it's unlikely that this theory will find confirmation. Penguins would hardly be able to survive in Venus's atmosphere, which is 96% composed of carbon dioxide. There's also a small amount of sulfuric acid clouds on this planet. But scientists still don't know how the bodies of these birds can produce phosphine. They plan to conduct a thorough study and observe the behavior of Gentoo penguins. They need to know what the birds eat, what kind of lifestyle they lead, and much more. After the study, scientists hope the penguin phosphine will help identify many different organisms living on other planets. It's possible that inside the penguins, certain anaerobic bacteria produce phosphine to fight other competing microbes. Traces of phosphine can also be found in pond slime on our planet. In the future, scientists are going to send several probes to Venus to explore the planet's atmosphere and find the source of phosphine. There's another animal that may be from another planet. No, not me. This time, it lives in seas and oceans. In 2018, a scientific article was published where a group of researchers stated octopuses were not born on Earth. And this is not a metaphor. They literally called them creatures from outer space. And in fact, there are several reasons to think so. One of the hypotheses says that viruses from other worlds fell into the Earth's ocean and infected squid with shellfish, and forced them to evolve into octopuses. Another theory says the octopus's eggs were brought to our planet on a meteorite. All these versions appeared because of how unique the octopus is. These sea creatures are closely related to snails, mollusks, and squids. But octopuses are much smarter. They are the smartest invertebrates on the planet. Their intellectual abilities are also superior to many mammals, including some guys I went to school with. They have one of the most complex nervous systems of all living organisms. Octopuses have a central brain in their body, and their tentacles are endowed with a neural connection that allows them to think separately from the central mind. Their vision is developed in such a way that their eyes can be compared to the lens of an expensive video camera. They can change color and shape, disguise themselves with a combination of color pigment, nerves, and muscles. But the coolest thing is their intelligence. They can relax and do nothing, be lazy, and have fun. No other creature on the planet has such an unusual appearance and behavior. But the main reason to consider them as aliens from outer space is their history of evolution. In any existing animal, you can track its evolutionary stages of development. For example, elephants and mammoths descended from a common ancestor from the elephant family that went extinct 5 to 6 million years ago. If you look even further, you see almost all mammals descended from animal-like reptiles. Almost every animal has a branch of evolution that has made it what it is. Each species changes over millions of years. But octopuses don't have this branch. They suddenly appeared on the family tree. From the point of view of evolution, squid should evolve into octopuses in millions of years. But scientists can't track the evolution of octopuses with all their intelligence, their tentacles, and their ability to disguise themselves. The octopus genome is unlike any other genome on the planet. If the outer space origin of octopuses turns out to be real, it could confirm the theory opposite to Darwin's evolution. According to this theory, living organisms or their embryos were brought to Earth from outside on meteorites. But for now, there's no evidence to support this theory. Some scientists believe that octopuses separated from the squid line about 135 million years ago. But this theory hasn't been proven either. But if octopuses came to us from outer space, how is it possible that living organisms survived an interstellar voyage? In fact, this is not impossible. There are creatures on Earth that can survive in space, and these are tardigrades or water bears. These are microscopic 8-legged invertebrates close to arthropods. You need a microscope to see them, but even a cheap one will let you see them in detail. From the outside, they look somewhat like bears. They are called water bears because they require a thin layer of water around the body to prevent dehydration. These creatures have been found in all kinds of environments, from the depths of the ocean to hot sand dunes. They are incredibly tenacious thanks to their unique structure. They look soft, but their body is covered with a hard cuticle. This covering resembles the exoskeleton of grasshoppers, mantises, and many other insects. Water bears shed the old cuticle layer to grow. Each of their 8 legs has 4 to 6 claws, which helps them cling to any surface. The tardigrades managed to survive at a temperature of minus 328 degrees Fahrenheit. This is almost 3 times colder than in icy Antarctica. Hot conditions aren't a problem for them either. They have survived a temperature of 300 degrees Fahrenheit. This means they exist in boiling water. Water bears aren't afraid of radiation or high pressure. In the depths of the ocean, pressure can destroy alloys of strong metals. The water bear can withstand pressure 6 times heavier. But the coolest thing is that they can live in the vacuum of space. Our planet has a magnetic field, that is, a shield that protects us from solar radiation. Tardigrades don't care about this radiation. They can go into low Earth orbit and return unharmed. Their body strength is provided by a protein that protects their DNA from ionizing radiation. Tardigrades can also fall into a state of cryptobiosis. If the surrounding conditions suggest freezing, drying out, lack of oxygen, or an overabundance of salt, the tardigrade pulls its head and legs inside the body and falls asleep. It can stay in the form of an unmoving barrel until the conditions around it improve. This state of cryptobiosis allows them to live without water and food for decades. In 2016, scientists managed to revive 2 tardigrades that had been sleeping for more than 30 years. These creatures have survived 5 global catastrophes on Earth. They appeared about 5 billion years ago, and it's possible they'll live just as long. They aren't afraid of any apocalypses. Asteroids hit our planet, a supernova explodes nearby, and its radiation splashes out on Earth. A global heat or ice storm starts. People and most living creatures may not survive these events, but the water bears can.